Do you really?
Yeah, there was a dude. He was like, "When are you gonna be on the podcast again?" I was like, "Oh man."
Because I want to stalk you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
when
think he
when
was actually talking about my stream, but I was like, "I'll be on the podcast next weekend." He's like, "Well, I was actually talking about your stream, but that's cool too." Oh, all
And
right.
and where do you live?
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I like to throw streams up for everybody to check out when we're just like in the middle of
Yep.
playing around.
All right, let's do this.
All right. DZR.
Welcome to DZR, episode 22 of the Dark Zone Report. I'm Dan Thrax. I'm your host, coming to you live from the basement. I'm actually camped out of my basement now. My wife has finally succeeded in getting me to move all my stuff down here. So that's where I am. But I got two fellas here with me tonight, joining the cast again. His third appearance, Hoagie. What's going on, Hoagie?
Yo, what's up, man? How are you? I'm doing well.
How's it
You can
going?
answer now.
That's,
Good.
I'll tell you how it's going. It's going
I'll
great.
tell. It's great, and you're doing great too.
Thanks, buddy.
I'm
You.
turning into a motivational speaker where I'm actually just telling people how they're doing, and it's magically just changing their lives.
That is awesome. Do you have a website yet for that we can
Yeah,
promote?
darkzonereport.com.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. Hey, next to him, we have the one and only Pretzel Poncho. What's going on, Pretzel?
I don't know. Apparently, my Samsung Galaxy S7 phone thing that rides in my pocket all day is like 50 times better than the two computers I have at my house. So there's
You know
that.
what that means? You know what that means? It's time to get a new computer, bro.
Yeah, I guess so. Oh no. Did I leave? Am I still here? I'm still
Yeah,
here.
you're still here,
Okay.
man. I think you turned your
Whew.
video off. But in any
I
case, good
accidentally
to
hit the
have
back
you.
button.
Yeah, good to have you guys, and always good. We got a slightly stripped down cast tonight, but there's actually a very good reason for that. So we'll jump right into some show news. DZR is actually covering E3. Now, none of us were
E3.
there. Not to be confused with covering it from the place, because like I said, nobody invited us. But
Yeah,
we're
they
gonna,
didn't pay me enough to drive down there. I'm pretty close, but not that close.
yeah, maybe next year, man. Um, So we're actually going to be doing through our YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed to the Dark Zone Report YouTube, go ahead and just search for us, Dark Zone Report, on YouTube, and you will find it. To date, we've kind of used the YouTube primarily as a place to put the live and uncut versions of the show. So that has the face cams if you'd like to see what we look like, all that kind of stuff, and you catch usually some extra pretty funny moments there. But that's pretty much what we've been using it for. But with the launch of this content we're going to be doing for E3, we're going to be looking to put some more regular content up there. Some of it, a good portion will probably be division specific, but also kind of doing some broader stuff with gaming in general, doing game reviews, news, that kind of thing. And so we are going to be doing some extensive E3 coverage. Heading that up, we got Binary Numb, Ogaz, and Golden Boy. So they're right now, as we speak, getting prepped, and they're going to be recording their first piece tonight. Going to be kind of a cool, 10 to 15 minute kind of discussion type show on YouTube that's going to be based on the major happenings of the day and looking at specific developers and all that. So be sure to check that out. Search for Dark Zone Report on YouTube, and certainly would be glad for everybody to share it, retweet it, and subscribe and like and all that kind of stuff. We're hoping that if we can get enough of a response going and you guys actually like the content, we'll be able to do more of it in the future. So be sure to check that out. Also, some general kind of community news. We got kind of sad news, I guess, in that Alex the Lion, who we've talked about on the show before, he was doing a really cool kind of short form, on demand type podcast that would cover news as it came out. He's decided that he's going to stop doing that show. And so we just want to, number one, I think, thank him for all the great content that he's put out on the
Yeah.
division. He's been a great member of the DZR Discord. And so we're very appreciative of what he's done. And moving on to do some other things. And we certainly wish him the best in that. And we'll be sharing more about that as we get more information. We, friend of the show, and we definitely want to support him going forward and do whatever we can to make sure he's successful. So, Alex, thank you, sir, and good luck with whatever it is you are going to do next. Some other community news. We are continuing, and we talk about it every week, and it's just continuing to grow and grow. The DZR Discord is continuing to just be a great place to be. It's really great. It's actually, we've gotten enough members.
558.
558 right now.
I just checked it.
There's kind of more folks in there, and a large portion of those people are active, and we're seeing a lot of grouping up and playing together, and it's been a really great thing. You got some time, you want to sit down and play, you can just pop on that Discord and find people to play with. And really the thing I've been happiest about is just a really great atmosphere over there. We've got some folks that just kind of continuously help people through, even if folks are kind of inexperienced or whatever. We don't have a whole lot of kind of gear score or loadout snobbery going on, which is great. It's really just a great community of people that help each other. So that's going great. Be sure to check that out. And the other thing I just wanted to remind everybody about, of course, you can always follow us on Twitter at Dark Zone Report, or you can check out the website, www.darkzonereport.com. There's some really great information on there, some kind of specialized pieces, and then there's also, for one thing, the State of the Game write-up that comes out every week that Ogaz does. That is just excellent and a great way to catch up with what's going on in the division. So speaking of that, we want to do a couple things tonight. One of which is going to go through the State of the Game that came out this week. There were some kind of interesting things there, and just talk through them and talk about how it's impacting the game and how it's going to impact us going forward. So the first, some of this is just kind of glitch stuff. There was what they call the Houdini hallway trick that was basically two areas in DZ06 subways where players could magically teleport back to checkpoints. And some other kind of teleport points. Guys, did you ever see that actually in practice? I've heard of this, but I can't say I ever ran into a Pretzel. Do you ever run into it in the Dark Zone? People just kind of going down in the hallways and disappearing?
No, personally I haven't. They have Golden and a couple of guys have brought it up a couple times, but I've never actually run into me chasing down a rogue or me being rogue and finding the spot that let me just disappear into another part of the Dark Zone.
Yeah. No, and it's good, and I'm glad they kind of fixed it. Hoagie, I know you've kind of taken some more time in the Dark Zone here in the past couple of weeks just because of some of the groups we've been able to put together. Did you ever see that Houdini hallway?
No, definitely not. And I still don't understand how these. I mean, I could see one or two people, finding it randomly, but I still don't understand how these get popular enough that they make a fix for it. It's crazy.
That's the Reddit, man. That is the power of Reddit.
Absolutely.
Somebody finds it, puts it up, and then you can certainly see how people would exploit it. You go,
absolutely.
Go and just jump in there, and boom, you're teleported back to a checkpoint. So I'm glad they kind of fixed it. Although, like I said, I myself have never actually encountered it. The next point is that there were some respawn zone issues inside the Clear Sky incursion. So what they've essentially done is move the no respawn zone further into the entrance to avoid mistakenly triggering the event and thereby preventing access to the incursion by other group members, which apparently was only applying to hard. There's a workaround out there which is basically to go back to the entrance, change the difficulty, and introduce that to the incursion. Supposedly there's a fix coming on that. That's another one where I didn't really, I've heard a lot about restart issues and all of that, and I've never really kind of had the problem. Pretzel, that sounds very tasty, whatever it is you're munching on there. Oh, man. I'll edit that out. Crunch, crunch, crunch. What the heck? He had his headphones out and everything. We can still hear you eating.
That's crazy, bro.
Yeah, that phone, it's the power of the Samsung phone. All right, so let's jump in. So we were just talking about the respawn zone. Here we go. Pretzel, you ever run into the respawn kind of issues with team members not being able to get into the incursions? I don't know that I've seen it, to tell you the truth.
The respawn not being able to get in? I don't.
People getting locked out of, team members getting locked out of the incursion once other members have started.
No, The only time I've seen that is if it's been a change in the roster, or if you try to run it and didn't complete it, and try to run it again with another team soon after. But I haven't had an issue with a respawn thing not happening in the actual incursion.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I've heard of this again, but it's maybe it's just the way I play it, or the fact that I normally go in there with a full group and we're all kind of moving up together. I'm not sure
Yeah.
exactly what's caused this, but it's good to know that at least there's a workaround out there, and supposedly they're aware of it. They're going to be fixing it. Big news, huge news. Challenge mode Clear Sky is active.
Yeah, it sure is.
So have you beat it?
No, I have not.
I tried it. I jumped in the other night.
Yeah, we tried it.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, Pretzel. We ran that together. We ran that with
Surfer and Barca.
Man.
Barca Man, yep. Yeah, Bacra, Barca Man, something like
You
that.
guys probably got slaughtered, didn't you?
No, well, so we kind of ran into some bad luck, is what happened, really. One of the instances that we went in on, we went to do the Marco style setup where you set up on the sniper building.
Yeah.
And we went in there. It probably would have went pretty smooth, except when we went up there was already a dude with an assault rifle standing on top of the building, just shooting us all at point blank range. And we were trying to kill him, but apparently it just took forever. Then the second time we did it, or the next time we went in there, the guy wasn't there, so it was good to go. But we got up there, set up our whole system, turned around, called out a fat boy on the backside. So we all turned to focus on him, but he kind of disappeared because turned out what happened was he got real close to the building and actually climbed up on top, and then was inside of us as well, and inside like our group, and it was just like
Oops.
inside that range where like things start getting really tricky. Like it's just hard to manage the.
Can't aim. You can't.
You can't really aim that well when things are like within a meter of you, you know.
Yeah.
He was
And-
mailing the crap out of us.
So
man.
he just beat us all to death.
That's hilarious.
Everybody goes down. So for those of you that don't know, Marco Style put out a video with a Clear Sky strategy. Highly recommend you check it out. As always with Marco's stuff, it's really good, and it kind of ties into some of the things we're going to be talking about later. But the basics of it are, it doesn't really address the first part, and we were able on Clear Sky Challenge to get to the circle, so we were able to beat the first part. And it wasn't easy, it was challenging, but we were able to kind of get through that first part, and then we just got slaughtered once we were in the circle. But the basic idea is, there's a couple different strategies. One of the ones that has been kind of the prevalent strategy is that first guard building that you see when you kind of go over the truck on the left side. Has been to kind of group up there and fend off folks from there. But Marco's idea, and it works pretty good, was to basically just run up that left side and get into the guard tower there where the sniper sits. And if you just book it right from the beginning, you can actually get there before you really start getting shot much. And so you get up there and you basically plant, you get on the roof and you basically plant smart cover. And it depends on having a tactician in your group, or at least someone with a really high skill power. We're going to talk more about tacticians later because I actually ran that build pretty successfully on some of the earlier challenges. But so you get up there, you just plant smart cover, and then you just tank everything. You tank the mortars, and you just kill stuff from there, and just continually pop in smart cover. And
So how are you running fuses?
well, so you do have a runner, but the thing is, a lot of the enemies spawn out of the subway that's up there.
So they're all just there. They're not paying attention to the fuse runner at all.
Immediately, and it keeps the fuse runner relatively clear.
Hmm.
Now, we ran it on hard mode, and so I was running a tactician's build, and we had everybody else was running DPS essentially, and it worked amazingly, man. I mean, we just tanked everything. So all of us, and I don't think, toughness-wise, I was running around 200. Pretzel, you were running what? on toughness?
I was under 300 on that one, but I was running that mark build so that I was marking with sentries,
Yeah.
and yeah, that worked out
Yeah, so
well.
we actually, I think, and this was just the other night, a couple nights ago, we actually played the game, or last night actually, we actually played the game the way I think it was designed, which is we ran rolls, and we're going to talk about it more in the show because I think, yeah, man, it
Oh
was
yeah,
really fun to play the game that way. Um,
it was very fun.
so we had two guys running kind of, pretty pure DPS, and then Pretzel was running a Sentry. You were running a 4-2 Sentry Striker, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Sentry Striker, I believe, was the run I was going with.
Yeah, and I was running like a tactician, a 4 tactician, 2. Can't remember what my 2 piece was. May have been Striker actually. It was either Striker or Sentry, and man, it was awesome running the skill build. So I had gotten my skill power up to around 30,000, and we ran it through a couple things. Our plan was we're just going to run all the incursions. We're going to run hard mode, challenge mode, and Falcon Lost obviously took a while on hard mode because it always does, but it wasn't that difficult. And we actually ran it from a spot that Pretzel. Well, no, I guess I take that back. Hard mode we ran kind of from the pit, the normal spot. But then out in Clear Sky we ran this approach, man, and we just got up there. And the great thing about tacticians is that you see that bar go up. You see the buff start happening when your guys are applying damage. And in the
Yeah.
incursion, especially if you're running with DPS crew, that thing stacks like crazy. I mean, it doesn't take long for you to be at 100% skill power boost. And I was actually running, it's one of the first time I've run an incursion with no first aid. I was running Pulse and Smart Cover, and basically running a 60k Smart Cover and a 60k Pulse.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, when I first got my skill, my tac, the first time I ran through hard mode, Falcon Lost, I got my last 2 pieces of tac gear, and the first thing I did is I went and ran Russian Consulate, and I did Pulse and Smart Cover, and I was like a week into 30 or something like that, and I was just shredding people, and it felt so nice. Now, I mean, challenge mode is easy on those, I mean, you could solo it. Most people can solo them slowly, but oh man, it was so nice just taking down those elites solo. It's awesome.
Well, the great thing was at 30,000 skill power and running the Sentry build, I had 100% uptime on Smart Cover. So as soon as the thing would fry out, I'd be
Right there.
loaded up again and ready to go, and was able to maintain a constant Smart Cover, which was really cool.
The smart cover gives the 15% buff to damage too, and then you have your pulse with crit and crit chance and crit damage. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Now I
No,
have a question. Now you're up on the guard. It sounds very similar to the pit in the first incursion. Now, is it still fun to do it like that and not just run around, or?
Here's the thing. It's shorter.
Yeah.
So, I think on hard mode, we did it in like, I don't know, sub 10. It was a sub 10-minute run.
And that's with the first part.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, all in. And so, is it the most exciting thing in the world to sit up there and spam Smart Cover and just shoot off the top of a roof? No, it's not terribly interesting. We're running with one runner, and everybody else is just basically up there shooting stuff. But I will say that it was shorter, and so it's not like you're doing the same thing for 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
And the gear was good. I mean, the weekly dropped a couple of 240s for me, even on hard mode.
That's awesome.
The weekly reward. And it was good. And there is something to be said for engaging enemies from the kind of elevated position, and you've got ranged encounters. When you're working out of the pit in Falcon Lost, your ranged encounters generally consist of shooting up on the railings, either at snipers or looking at some of the AR guys that hang out up there.
Yeah.
But I tend to prefer those range type encounters, and so it was fine shooting from the roof. But I got to tell you, early on you talked a lot about the skill build, and that Sentries, man, that thing is beastly, and it was
Yeah.
a lot of fun to play that way. And so one of the things that happened is when we were running it, so I was running the Sentries, Pretzel was running, or sorry, I was running the Tacticians,
Okay.
Pretzel was running the Sentries. And so what you would see is Smart Cover would be up, Pulse would be up, and then Pretzel's just there tagging everybody.
Oh, and you're
Um,
just
Yeah,
killing
it
it.
was fun.
with
It was
with
great.
just melting dudes. And tell them a little bit too, Pretzel, about you kind of reorganized your loadout a bit just to make sure you were constantly marking, which I thought was a pretty cool little tip.
Yeah, it was actually kind of neat uh, once I fell into that whole four-piece sentries to strikers and going for the marking thing and to support the team. I mean, I could do damage, but they could do way more once I marked them.
Hmm.
Going into that, I was like, hey, you know what? Why don't I just go all weapons that can mark? So I ended up with a loadout with the four-piece sentries and a shotgun, M1 Alpha, and a pistol, which I would bounce between all of them depending on the situation. And I found that actually the shotgun is amazing. Whether you're doing damage with it or not, it's extremely easy to get the mark on the enemies with the shotgun.
I would bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't
And
you don't get credit. So let's say you land all 8 pellets on the head. You don't get credit for 8 headshots, but you do have a spread on it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so it's like even if you get one of those pellets to hit in the head, then it counts and marks them. So you just put 3 quick shots on them, and as long as you're somewhere near the head, you're probably going to tag them.
Now,
it was
how far can you actually shoot that shotgun? Like, does it stop working, or can you
um
shoot that across the circle for like 1 damage?
I didn't with what we were trying, I didn't actually attempt to try to shoot it across the circle. It was all like right basically they all came pretty close to the building we were on the roof of.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
shotgun worked out actually pretty well because they were all within shotgun distance. And then the guys who were a little off once I marked everyone close, I would just pull out either the pistol or the sniper rifle just to tag them real quick.
Nice.
I don't know. Uh, from what I noticed in
That's
the
a lazy
beginning,
question, by the way.
yeah, I mean
Hey!
the beginning the first quarter piece that you run through to blow the doors to get to the circle. I actually ran the shotgun too, and it didn't seem as long as you could get a good headshot, like, get that reticle on the head and pull the trigger, you would get a good mark.
Yeah,
It actually seemed like a very effective way to plant the mark on a target.
that's awesome. I mean, that's exactly what they wanted too when they made that when they fixed it. Buff
It's
or
funny.
sorry, nerf or fix, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I don't think they were thinking like running a shotgun, running a shotgun sentry build. But man, we talked about it last week. I love the pistol as a marker
Yeah.
because you can just I don't know headshots. I just find headshots with the pistol are pretty easy, and you can just pop 8-9 rounds, and you're not caring about missing, and you can get the rate of fire is so
Yeah,
quick. You can get 3
that was
really
nice.
quickly. But the shotgun's an interesting. I like the approach, and I guess the idea was, hey, depending on the situation, we'll just switch it up. So with a pulse running at essentially 60,000 skill power after the tactician's 4-piece bonus, and the smart cover, and the sentries mark, and I think somebody was running booster shot as well.
Oh, yeah. I
I mean,
forgot.
the output was incredible. I think Pretzel, at one point you were saying you were consistently getting, crit hits that were over 1 million.
Oh
Was that
yeah,
when
when we were running what was it, the challenge, the Falcon Lost challenge mode, right?
Yeah.
You were dropping that with the method we were using. It allowed us to utilize smart cover extremely well, and I was like myself and Surfer were consistently getting over 1 million crit hits on head shots. Like that was phenomenal.
Yeah. I
There
bet
was a
you remember
huge difference between when that was up and when it wasn't up.
that. Yep. And so real quick on that, so we may as well talk about that too. We've talked about the strategy for Clear Sky. And again, I will say this, when we went into challenge mode for Clear Sky, we tried to apply the same strategy, and I think we had some bad luck, but I also think it's a really good strategy, but you still need to be geared.
Yeah.
your toughness needs to be at a level that you can withstand just the increased damage. But you can see how it would work, but I think you just need to be geared a little bit higher. I don't know. Did you get that read too, Pretzel, on that?
I'm sorry, for what was it again?
I was gonna say, I think the strategy still looked good and challenging for Clear Sky. It was just I think we were.
Yes, I agree. That was the thing is I think just like he says at the beginning of that video, it's still a gear um what's the word I'm looking for here? Basically based on gear. In that the method will work, but if you don't have the gear to sustain your team or yourself during the challenge level, it's not going to pan out.
Now,
And I
do you
think
need
that was the
240
problem.
gear for that?
I don't think you need 240 gear. I think that you need a build that is complete without being like, don't get me wrong, yeah, you would want to be 240 for complete gear, I guess most people would think. But if you've got a solid build at 240, like I was running a throw together centuries marking build.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I had actually built up and like put some actual recalibration thought into the build. I had just thrown together the centuries pieces I had and I put on two strikers to cover down and was doing what I could. But the this toughness I had was well under 300k, and for challenging, you should
Yeah.
not be going
That's
in
not going to
with
cut
that
it.
low of a. Yeah, you need to have a higher toughness than that. We were doing the best we could, but you need to have some thought out gear for a challenging mode run for sure.
Yeah, and the other thing too that we found, and we'll talk about the Falcon Lost really quick, but with the challenge, and the other thing was we were finding we were getting knocked off the wall a lot more, which wasn't really an
Oh
issue
yeah.
in Falcon Lost, but in challenging when you're sitting up there and you're just getting grenades launched on you and the mortars and everything else, you have to be really conscious of whether or not you were on the wall or not or off, and so it was a little tricky. But real quick about the just because some people I'm sure think there's only one way to approach Falcon Lost, and that's to go down in the pit. But we used an interesting strategy that I thought was pretty good, where we actually went. So when you jump through the window and down into the main room, there's an area on the left. One is like there's kind of like a room with some windows, looks kind of like a control room or something, and then there's an area in front of that that has a large kind of rectangular pillar. Um, the great thing about the area is that with a maxed skill power build, when you pop smart cover, it actually runs a smart cover around that entire kind of large pillar. And so you actually have an opportunity in the context of Falcon Lost to use smart cover effectively. I always found it difficult down in the pit, unless you're running mobile cover and you apply the smart cover to that, to actually get the benefit of smart cover. There's really only one spot, that one little wall on the left kind of stairway if you're looking up at the APC. But in this area that Pretzel kind of showed us, you go down, you go to the left, and you camp out there. You can basically camp out and set up with your smart cover, and you get the benefit of all four teammates getting the smart
Nice.
cover kind of buffs. And it was good. I mean, we attempted challenging that way, and we made it to, I guess, wave 8?
We got past third plant, I'm pretty sure, which
Okay.
also I did with Jimmy Vegas and Barkerman and I think DJ Rhythm.
Yeah.
So it works. You just have to be prepared for the end. It gets a little more chaotic in those last couple waves, and you
Yeah.
just got to be prepared to hold tight.
Have you guys ever run generators on the right side on Falcon Lost?
I have seen it. I haven't run it that way, though.
Me neither.
You ran it.
Actually, I did run it. That are you talking about the ones up on the top level
Yeah.
on the right back? Yeah, I ran that with Surfer and the guys a couple times. It works. You just kind of need some luck on your side with that one, for sure.
Well, you don't have a lot of mortar cover, right? So where we
Yeah.
were down underneath there are a few times where the turrets will get you, but generally speaking, you didn't have to worry about mortar fire. So it was really just about, can you control the shotgunners? I mean, I guess that's the whole thing anyway, right? But that was really, as long as you can control the shotgunners, and having
Yeah.
the smart cover there really helped And the times we died, honestly, there were a couple spots where either I didn't get the smart cover back on the wall fast enough, or whatever. It was definitely a part of it. But I'm telling you, man, with that tacticians and with you guys doing the level of DPS you were doing, I had 100% uptime on the smart cover. Basically, it just came down to, was I remembering? Occasionally I would like double tap it, and destroy it.
I hate that.
So things like that, where it was kind of like more user error. But I think it's definitely a viable way to do it, and it is a little more fun because you're moving around and getting to do some other things, and you actually do some call outs and stuff like that. But so it was good, and enjoyed it, and I think it bodes really well. We're going to talk after we go through the rest of the state of the game notes. It bodes really well, I think, for the kind of meta of the game, that we're starting to see some other builds really getting publicity. People have been talking about toughness, or well, I guess before it was armor health builds and skill builds for a while, but now you're seeing it more and more that it's becoming kind of more mainstream, where people are actually running defined roles, which I think is great. I had a lot of fun, even though my role as kind of the the skill guy, it was a little more diminished, and it was a little hairy sometimes, not running a health, running a heal, but a lot of fun to kind of play that support role if you like doing that, which I do.
I'll take credit for that, Dan. I mean, I was talking skill for months now, so you're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah,
Marco, you're welcome also.
actually, even last night, I went out. I stayed up really late last night. I didn't go to bed till like about 5:30 a.m. I was running. We ran all those incursions. Me and the Anthrax ran, trying to get challenge completed, but not quite getting there. So I ended up linking with some guys and running some DZ just to try to make up for some gear loss that I had with non-completions. But got an MP7, had a good time. There was actually I got the MP7 with a, what does it have? It's got some decent. It's got responsive and something else on it that was decent. I can't remember offhand. But we kept running. We were doing actually really well. I continued with the build that I was going with Danthrax and the guys in the incursion, and I had the 4-piece sentries going with I think it was 2 strikers, and we were just, and it turned out actually one of the other guys in the group, I think it was McDad, he was also marking guys. So there was 2 of us just marking dudes. That was our job. We were just marking dudes. The other 2 were slaying them. And it was sick. We were running through the dark zone like butter, man. Like a hot knife through butter. It was one of the best dark zone runs I'd had in a long time, because between the 2 of us, we would put that bonus damage on everyone we could see, and they would just knock them down.
Yeah.
And it was great. And then after that MP7, and we shifted, we got a bunch of gear out, and the guys were like, hey, let's, there were some rogues that were running around. We're like, hey, let's go take care of these rogues. So I shifted my gear actually a little bit to have some actual substantiability, I guess you could say, because I was under 300k, and I got almost 400k toughness up.
Wow.
But running a 24k not a BPS, 24k skill power with I don't know, whatever the DPS was, it didn't matter. It wasn't helping me. That wasn't the point of what I was doing. But we went in there with those guys because a couple of them had some good DPS. We went over and found the rogues. They were actually trying to extract some stuff. And we were like, no, we're not going to let you extract. You've been roguing people all night. And we started stomping on them. And we killed those guys. There was enough dudes, however, that showed up to fight them as well, that with, a couple people on the, the sticks, you get a little antsy, and sometimes you hit the wrong guy. So we hit a neutral agent and went rogue ourselves. And actually, at that extraction point, we stayed there for a hot minute, and there ended up being our 4 guys against literally, I'm pretty sure the entire server showed up to that extraction point. And we were just fighting like more. I couldn't even count how many guys we were fighting. There was a bunch of us, and I just kept popping heals on our guys and smart cover. And it was great because my DPS guys could run in, pick up extra damage and extra resistance, and then when their health did go down, they just grabbed a crazy heal that would put them all the way up into an overheal, and we just stood there just fighting dudes for a good probably 20-30 minutes, and then we're like, you know what, we should probably get moving, and we went into a big chase after that. But it was actually a really good time.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And I think, it's really good for the game that, and again, a lot of times when you see the theory crafting stuff, a lot of it is really good stuff. I mean, we've talked on the show about like Breezy Peasy and Skill Up, and those guys do great work. But a lot of times they tend to be focused on what's the max damage output. And you
Yeah,
got to remember this game is meant to be played. You can play it solo, but in my mind, it's really meant to be played as a team. And it's just
definitely.
great that Sentries is still really, really strong in terms of increasing team DPS.
Yeah.
Tactician's Authority is really, really strong in terms of increasing team survivability and team damage. I mean, so, for those players that like to play the support roles, and again, I'm one of those guys. I just love kind of playing that role and doing more than, being responsible for more than just kind of pulling the trigger. They're alive and well, man. Sentries is alive and well. If you can
Oh
get
yeah, that reminds me. Sorry to cut you off, Dan. If anybody can beat me to this, send us an email or hit us up on the Discord. So that whole Sentries build, I talked to the guys. I was like, you know what would be crazy? What if we could do? Because the pistol works, right? For marking, for doing that support job, the pistol works with Sentries build. What if we ran a four-piece Sentries, say maybe even two-piece final measure, go tankish, throw on a or not, what is it called?
the
The
ballistic
shield,
shield.
not the ballistic shield. Sorry, yeah, the ballistic shield. Right? So you're running around with the ballistic shield, probably maxed out because you're running tac, full on, or no, sorry, sentries. But you're gonna want to go with skill power on the stuff, roll it, recalibrate it. Have the shield run around just in the middle with help with stamina and skill power in the middle of that, marking dudes.
Hmm.
And then you just run up and maybe throw on a little on your gloves, mask, and chest piece some health back on kill. If you get a kill or two, you can stay alive. I think that would be super fun. That would be an interesting build to run. Sentries call tank build with marking. So you just get in the middle of it, mark everyone you possibly can as fast as you can, constantly marking dudes, and your buddies are just schwacking them. Because it's crazy, dude. That Sentries build, when you're marking dudes, they go down fast.
Yeah.
It's pretty sick.
Well, 45% is not a small number.
No,
No.
it's not.
And especially if you've got guys that are, you got heavy DPS behind you, backing you up. And,
Oh my
when
gosh.
we were doing it, you talk about effective ways to use it. I mean, it was basically like we were still doing call outs, but really the call out was look for the Sentries mark tag.
Yeah.
That's the guy you're shooting.
Yeah.
You're shooting. And I know, Pretzel, you've been wanting to run a legitimate, feasible ballistic shield build since this game launched.
Yeah.
Hopefully you get the pieces that you're looking for and you can try it out. But again, I mean, I think the takeaway is Sentries still good, Tactician's Authority still good. I am aggressively looking for 214 and 240 pieces for both of those so that I can really kind of recalibrate and start rolling them where I want to be. But really fun and fun to play the game that way. Guys, let's talk real quick. One of the big stories of the week, and it was actually addressed, Marco, again, Marco is a beast with this stuff, man. He broke the story, and they addressed it on the State of the Game, and this was the nerf on crit chance. Now, this wasn't included in any of the notes, which we'll talk about in a minute, was kind of one of the main issues with this. But in terms of the actual change, here's kind of what they did. Now, previously, there was what we would call a soft cap on crit chance at 60%. So in terms of modding your weapons, getting crit chance on weapon mods and the other kind of gear pieces that you could roll it on, you would cap out at 60% in terms of crit hit chance. And,
Soft cap.
if you're really kind of new to the game, that basically just means 6 out of 10 shots would roll at your kind of higher critical damage level, which, the amount of damage that would be extra would be dependent on your crit damage. So 60%, and it was one of the things I think that really contributed to the kind of submachine gun meta that's been in the game since launch. But the thing was that you would cap at 60 from your gear and weaponry, but if you went with a maxed pulse, for instance, or any pulse, that stuff would actually stack on top and would push you over the 60% soft cap. And so you had people that were running 100% crit chance, essentially, on their SMG, which, you can run kind of crit damage up significantly high. And so what was happening is essentially it was this huge damage boost to guys that were running this, and they'd run the pulse, and then all of a sudden every hit, or 8 out of 10, or 9 out of 10 hits were critical.
Now, just for you guys, what do you guys have on your crit damage? Just so we can give the listener, like, for me, I'm regularly running 150% crit damage. Like, just, I didn't even mean to, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So what about you guys? Is it a big number, or is it just a,
Yeah, I would say I'm usually between 150 and 175,
Yep.
unintentionally. If I'm pushing it, I'll probably go over 200, but unintentionally, I'm running 150 to 175%.
I mean, that's a lot of damage.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially
with the submachine gun, yeah.
With a submachine gun, right? Where and the thing too, I think is probably pretty hard to get. The thing about the submachine guns is it got the built-in, usually around 20, 21, 22, 24% critical hit chance kind of built into the gun. It's kind of like the headshot bonus on marksman rifles, just kind of built in that there's a crit chance increase. So those were, I think, the weapons that were really profiting from this. You can get a M1A up there pretty good, but certainly not as easily as you can a submachine gun. So that was happening for people that were maxed at the 60% with their gear. They were able to kind of jump to almost 100% crit chance or more. Well, you can't go over 100, obviously, but 100% crit chance when the pulse was out. So what Massive did was essentially to make that 60% a hard cap. So under no circumstances, buffs included, pulses out, whatever it is, will your crit chance exceed 60%. On a submachine gun, not on a submachine gun, whatever, no matter how you're geared, you can't go over that 60% kind of level. Now, how does this affect the game as a whole? Now, if you're not consistently getting to that 60% level, it's not going to affect you very much at all, right? You're going to keep running what you're running. But for the players that were at that 60% crit chance level and were consistently getting above that with the pulse and things like that, this definitely changes the game because it gives you the option, if you can get another weapon to that 60% cap, then you're not going to be automatically disadvantaged from the SMGs. And so it opens up some opportunities, for instance, for assault rifles, which have certainly greater range, and they've got their own challenges in terms of stability a lot of times, but you can mod them to be pretty stable, and now you've got increased range, and you will have, going forward, it's not going to be as high as it was before for SMGs, but going forward you're going to have a similar level of critical hit chance for the assault rifles that you had for the SMGs. That could be game changing. And it'll really kind of, I think, again, for players that were there, will give them the opportunity to use some different weapons and not be giving up on a ton of critical hit chance. I mean, do you guys see this kind of change as affecting the way you play, or not really?
I mean, for me, I've liked the SMG, and I've usually run one as my primary, but my secondary has always been something else, just because, well, a few reasons. One is because I like the variety. It's nice to be able to shoot a couple different guns I like. Two, it helps me with my ammo, is that I have multiple kinds of ammo that I'm actively using, and just for utility, is that I'll either have I have a decent M44. I have a pretty decent not an ACR, M44. I have a shotgun that I run sometimes, just depending on the level. And so I don't think it's going to change significantly. It's just going to make me think about, what mods am I putting on my gun, and then looking for crit damage more than crit chance in those instances that I need it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, where people had the problem with, and there was a bit of controversy in the community about this week. And I think where people had the problem was not necessarily that this was done, although, people will always complain when they're used to 100% crit chance, and now they're back down to kind of where it sounds like the developers actually intended it to be at kind of that 60% range. But I think the thing that bothered some people was that it wasn't mentioned. Now, Massive addressed this in their state of the game, and they said, we forgot, essentially is what they said, and we're still learning, and we want to make sure make sure the communication's on point going forward, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think for players that are counting on this as a component of their build, this is the kind of thing that if a Marco doesn't bring attention to it, or someone doesn't bring attention to it, you could have people just not even noticing that
No, for months.
The kind of aspect in the game that they built their build around is now no longer in the game, and they're just suddenly not performing as well, but they don't quite know why. In a game that's RPG based, and that where build and stats and all that is so important, it's important that the community knows when things like this, which are major, change. And
you've been using crit chance and realized a lowering of your performance? Well, we can help you out.
Have you found that your crit chance is just not as high and much more fast than it used to be? But again, it's one of those things where I think, and to Master's credit, they said, look, yeah, we forgot and we should have told you, and we'll try and be better. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that. But I think it is just one of those things where, look, this is really important, and especially in a build-centered game, you just got to make sure that people know what's going on, especially if it's going to be something.
Well, so for those guys who've been running SMGs at with their gear and the SMG at a high crit percentage, then what is the point of Pulse anymore? You know what I mean?
Pulse push you over the 60. So if you
but if you cannot go over the 60 anymore, and say you've been running type of gear with your with a high crit percentage SMG, between that, the gun itself, and the gear you've been running and the mods you've been running on it, what is the point of a Pulse now if when you run the Pulse, it cannot take you over what, say, you maybe already be hitting with what you have attached to your weapon and the gear you have?
Well, I mean, 100% increased crit damage, I mean, that's still fantastic. And also, what about
but that only procs if you get a crit chance hit.
Yeah, but I mean, still 60% is still a large amount. I mean, your SMG, how many? The SMG I have is I have 30 bullets in the magazine. I'm sorry, 60.
Well, so is it based on rounds in the magazine, or is it a
no? It's a straight number.
Each bullet gets a percentage,
per bullet.
like 60% chance per bullet that you hit crit chance.
But yeah, it's per bullet. But I'm still saying that if I'm emptying that magazine in 2.5 seconds, I'm still getting 60% of those. 40% of those, or 40 of those 60 bullets around.
You're not crushing bullets in that kind of time. Do you know how fast your rate of rounds per minute has to be for 2.5 seconds? Because for 2 seconds, I picked up an MP7 last night and checked it out. I threw the highest. I think it might have been 92%. The highest rate of fire magazine I had in my inventory, I threw onto an MP7, and I got it up to 12-17, I think it was. And it was with a 37 round mag at 12-17 rounds per minute. It took 2 seconds to empty a 37 round magazine.
That also has a crazy rate of fire, though, doesn't it? No, that's a 750. Anyway.
No, so it comes with 950. I increased it to a total of 12-17 with the highest magazine.
That's crazy.
With the highest rate of fire I had on me, I had rate of fire and magazine size going on. But so I had 37 rounds, and the gun could spit them out 37 rounds in 2 seconds. It could spit 37 rounds out.
It takes longer to reload than it does to empty the magazine almost at that point.
Yeah, actually it does, and that was very noticeable. I really liked the MP7. However, I think I would like an MP7 with brutal and destructive I mean, maybe it's something else with offensive, but because the thing I was noticing with this MP7 that I got, it had unforgiving. No, wait, sorry. It had responsive and something else that I was proccing, and then it had ferocious that I was not proccing. But they were all offensive pieces. I'll have to look at it again. But
I mean, in
it
the
was
end,
decent. But the thing was, like, I would blast a guy, and just as it was, you know how when you're shooting a dude and you're like, yeah, this thing's gonna wreck him, it would run out. I would end up out of ammo, and I would have to reload, and it would
yeah.
take longer to reload than it would take me to empty my magazine, and
That's
it
why I
was
like my big.
crazy.
That's why I like the big magazine of the AUG and the MP5 and that's why I've never run a Vector because I can't handle the low amount of ammo. I just don't like it.
I
But I
had a
mean,
Vector that I liked that I got the other day, and the Vector was running. It was kind of like a health. It was like a health Vector, basically, because it had two talents on it that would replenish health on kills. But again, magazine was just too small. It was going too fast. I think to Pretzel's point, I think this is what you were getting to originally. If you're running an SMG and you're up close to that 60% and you're running a pulse, you're wasting. I mean, I think that's the point that you're saying because you're
Yeah.
essentially burning either a skill or, if you've got gear that way, then I think it bears looking at some of your other weapons and saying, wow, if I can get an assault rifle
yeah.
that I
Yep.
like,
Yeah.
that can give me better range and get me to the same crit chance and give me more damage per bullet, then maybe you should be running that. And I think that's the whole point when we talk about how a change like this could affect the meta is that it will get us looking back into our arsenals and saying, wow, if
Yeah.
I can get to 60%, what other attributes of the
Because
weapon do I
yeah.
when I pick it
Yep.
out?
If
Right?
60% is now the cap for sure, right? So
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
60% is the cap, I can get my ACR that I have with brutal, destructive, and unforgiving, which was actually a pretty good drop I got from the DZ.
Yeah, it's not bad.
But so somehow I managed to get this gun, which actually has a good roll on it. This ACR keeps up with the 204 AUG I have, right? With brutal and meticulous. If you can only cap out at 60%, why not run an ACR that you can max out at 60% that's going to have, if it has more bullet damage and rate of fire than your SMG. I mean, I
Absolutely.
understand, like, you gotta really start looking at the numbers again and what's going to actually be more effective for you, because I have this thing without pulse at 20%, or sorry, 21%, which actually puts me into SMG range
Yep.
with my ACR.
No, and
Minus,
that's the
that's
point.
without pulse.
Yeah.
With pulse, that gives me another 30, 40% crit chance.
Yeah, and that's the point. That's what they're trying to do. It's less MG focused and more of these other weapons. I mean, they've been talking about it for a month or more. Is that we want to rebalance the weapons? We realize, people are using SMG too much. Blah 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 blah. That's what they're trying to do? They're trying to say we want to use every single weapon in this game. That's why Lone Star is out, and they're so excited about shotguns being used more. Is because they want to see every weapon used in different ways. Which, by the way, it boggles my mind that this is a classless game, but they want to use like I don't know. Maybe again, we're not seeing the whole picture, but they want us to fit into certain classes, but they're
Well, I
not.
think
Do you know what I'm trying to say?
when you say classless, I think it's that not so much that the game itself wanted us to be classless, but so more along the lines that it didn't want us to have to set into a particular class. Because there's a lot of games, the way that they're set up is once you start, you pick your
You're
character,
stuck.
you pick your race,
Yeah.
you pick your style. Like that's what you have to run. In this game, you can play a class. However, if you put in the time and effort, you can also accrue the gear to run a different type of class.
Yeah.
If that, depending on the situation, if your buddies if there's already two sentries or one sentry guy running in your group, you can now run your tacticians.
Yeah.
You don't have to run sentries the whole time, which I kind of like because although I wish they would. I really wish they would add something so that we could mark or lock gear that we wanted to keep for a certain build. It is
Yeah.
kind of a pain in the butt without having any way to know which piece without like memorizing all 6 attributes on that piece of gear for
Yeah.
what you're trying to run.
Yeah.
So,
No, I,
hey, Massive, please let us mark something or
Or a
lock something.
companion app on my phone. That would be wonderful.
Yeah,
So I can
yeah,
look
yeah.
up here.
Because don't
yeah.
get me wrong, I like that I can go with some guys and I can run a high toughness, high skill build and not like I couldn't kill dudes with the dudes that I was going in the Dark Z or the Dark Zone. I could not damage dudes, but I could improve their damage and keep them alive.
Yeah.
Then, if I want, I can run with Dan and I can run with the other guys and I can switch out to my DPS stuff. And all of a sudden, I'm now a freaking dude who can slay dudes. Especially when Dan's running his attack build and I'm just getting boosted like a crazy man. I like it a lot, but I would like to be able to mark stuff or at least lock things so that I know the things I want to keep around so I don't accidentally delete them for the builds I have in mind or have been using successfully.
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
Something I just thought of, Pretzel, while you were talking, while we've been having this conversation, is I wonder if we're going to get to a point where, because it's not defined roles, like if I'm a healer in another game or, DPS in another game, I know exactly what my goal is the whole entire time. But I wonder if RNG hurts us in this game because, again, there's so many different opportunities for different paths. I wonder as more things come out. I mean, we know more named weapons are going to come out. We know new gear sets are going to come out. I wonder if we're going to get to a point where we're almost we're maxing out the IQ of what players can do. Like I'm again, I feel like I understand how things are going, and even with 8 sets of gear, I'm already having to double check my sheets and all that stuff because I'm trying to figure out where do I actually want to go because I have so many different opportunities and not an
Oh
easy
yeah.
way to store my loadout. It's like I'm going to end up, if I actually care, and if I'm not lazy, which I have been lazy because I don't want to sit, I only have a certain amount of time to play. I don't want to spend 45 minutes in my boo on one specific build. When are we going to get to the point where people are not going to be hitting even 70% efficiency on their builds because there's too much going on because they're not defined and not helpful. And there's just too many choices where people are either A, doing all one thing, like we've seen with SMGs or a certain build, or B, people are just being terribly inefficient in their builds and thus not having fun because they can't do challenge modes because the expectation is 90% efficiency in their build when that is not the vast majority of the population of the players.
Well, I think, it's funny. When you say that, I think there's a couple of things. One, they did mention that there's more stash space coming, which I think is necessary given the number of gear sets there are. And like as a player, you'd like to be able to at least try them all, right? Save them up, try them. Trying different weapons, you'd like to have kind of a bit of a stash there that you can go back to. So that's good. But I think your point is more towards inventory management. Why
Absolutely.
can't you sort on armor, or you just go into a gear section or even in your stash and sort on, okay, what's got the most, whatever attribute. Even just something as simple as that when you're trying to put together a build would be incredibly helpful and incredibly time saving.
Yeah.
Let alone having kind of builds that you can assign to build
Oh,
slots and
absolutely. It's
activate.
such a pain. It's such a pain in the butt. Even I finish, some HVTs or a mission, and I go in and um, I have 6. I'm playing for 2 hours. I have 6 vests or 6, chess pieces, and I'm just like, oh gosh, like I don't even want to have to deal with that right now. I want to go play and not spend 20 minutes. I mean, 20 minutes is an exaggeration. 10 minutes probably looking through and saying, okay. If I want to do this in the future, or if this is on my build now, do I want to get rid of this high-end chess piece? And it's just it's getting to the point where for me, I'm actually just maybe not. I'm not even doing it the best way. I made a comment on chat the other day that basically all 191 gear set pieces are just basically going right in the recycle bin because I don't want to spend the time. Messing around with them to see if they're going to help. Now, for me, I run a tack build too, so I have some tack pieces of 191, But like, if I know I'm going for a future build, I'm not goofing around with 191 because that all I see that is wasting my playtime on things I know isn't going to be as good as a 214 or a 240. And it's just a little frustrating that I have to do so much time on that and not out playing the game.
I mean, that part, to be honest, I don't have a huge problem with. Like, you're going to get gear that is under your current level. That, I think, is just going to happen. You know, it's funny because despite needing crafting materials, despite needing cash, there's a lot of stuff I leave on the ground just because I'm constantly running my inventory at 58 or
Yeah.
59. I just don't feel like going through and clean. I've got weapons I actually want to try, like trying to sort. We do an HVT, and there's
No, yeah,
purple everywhere. It's
that's
like
part of the problem. Is that
just
we are, as a game, it's been around a little bit, but it's still a new game,
Yeah.
and the adjustments are not quite to a more permanent situation. In that exactly what Dan's talking about right now is he's got 10 guns, right? He's got 10 guns sitting in his inventory, and he's messed with 3 of them, and the others 7 he wants to mess with because he knows that things might happen here in the future that could cause them to be viable in the
Yeah.
situation that he plays in. And it's the same with me. Like I've got a couple guns that they may not be the most fantastic builds. However, depending on the build I end up throwing together, maybe they end up being a sweet little gun to add to a gear set.
Yeah.
Like an MP5 I have that is if I run Nomads 3-piece with 3 pieces of gear with health back on kill, I can get 20% plus say 11 or 12 each on each of the 3, and then that gives me a set number. But if I throw this gun on with self-preserved and self-sustained and or predatory, that boosts that even more. However, right now that's not the gun I want to run with.
Yeah.
So
no, you want to keep
I think the game is in a position right now that's where people just don't want to quite get rid of stuff because they don't know which way things are going to go on the next update or the next patch.
Yeah, so guys, I want to just we're over an hour here, so I want to kind of just move into a couple quick things before we wrap. I think we can all agree on this point that the inventory management is a little bit tedious right now and could use some work, and also it's just not very easy to kind of know what you have and know how it's contributing to your build, and it takes a lot of time, and it's just a quality of life thing, right? That we'd like to see.
Yeah. I mean, like for example, I literally had to the other night. I pulled out my phone, grabbed out the memo piece, and I wrote down like, "Hey, builds I am interested in right now." Right. So I was like, if it's not a 214 or 240 Nomads piece, or a 214, 240 final measure, which was a build I wanted, I was going to check, if I didn't have at least those. If I had those, I would keep them. The rest I would get rid of. Along with that, next I would do I don't remember exactly what it was. I wrote it down. I ended up not saving it, but I picked a couple pieces, picked a couple setups, and then I wrote and chose the levels of them. If they weren't, if I didn't have something at that level, obviously I would take the next level below. But I decided, hey, these couple builds with this certain amount of gear score, which not based on the gear score, but based on what those gear score pieces could provide you with extra numbers or extra amount of attributes on them. And I deleted everything else. I just had to take a night. I literally closed my party. I didn't let anyone join me. I didn't join anyone else. I just sat there and I went through my inventory and had to delete everything because I couldn't actually pick anything new up because of how much stuff I was trying to store.
No, I agree, and it's something that they should work on, I think, and something that would definitely improve the kind of quality of life for the players going forward. A couple of things, guys, as we wrap up here. Massive did address a number of specific items. One, there's been kind of rumors and talk out there, and people have said that there's been a nerf on the drop rates after 1.2. That in the DZ it was great for the first week, and then there was some kind of a nerf. Massive says no nerf. Um, so I don't know what to make of that. Some pretty kind of uh,
I'll say from the guys in the Discord that they felt the same way.
yeah,
That
we're seeing a lot of anecdotal evidence on that. The dev is saying, nope, we didn't nerf it. So I don't know what's going on there. We can't comment on it, obviously. But they've
oh
kind of suggested there wasn't anything there. And the other thing, too, was that, there's been some kind of commentary out there that skill power was nerfed, and they said that wasn't nerfed either, which I can tell you from my exploits the other night, skill power is alive and well.
yeah,
Um,
it's definitely viable.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess kind of high level overview of some of the things we talked about. Wanted to hit a couple topics tonight. One was to kind of look at some of these state of the game things. We talked about the critical hit nerf, which essentially for you is if you're not hitting that 60% gap, doesn't really affect you that much. If you have been counting on going over it with an SMG, now is the time to maybe try out some new builds and some new weapons. If you can get to that 60% crit chance, it might be time to reassess what you're using. We talked about the overall meta. Basically, really happy that we're seeing. One other thing I wanted to say on this: it's nice to see Marco and some other guys run out a 600,000 toughness build, which basically just and see them
It's
tank
crazy.
the dark zone, see things
Yeah,
tank
it's awesome.
version. It's great to see a viable path. Now, not an easy one, but it's actually a viable path and a valuable thing in the game right now to be able to, with running the fuses and all that, to have that level of toughness. So it's good stuff. I think overall, the meta has a potential to be changing, and I
Yeah.
think it's great to know that like Sentries is still viable. Tacticians is great. There's definitely kind of benefits to running that kind of coordinated team with coordinated loadouts. As we kind of wrap here, guys, I think the other thing I just want to reemphasize is that all this week, after the show launches, check out our YouTube Dark Zone Report on our YouTube channel, and you also find it on darkzonereport.com. You will find our 2016 E3 coverage. I've been kind of looking at my phone here. I know that as we speak, they are just getting ready to go into production on the first episode. It's a very exciting thing for us, and honestly, I hope after building it up that they're not terrible. But given the team that we've got in place there, I think they're going to be really good. And another thing, just
Oh
for
yeah.
me, having kind of when we started this thing with it just being a podcast and now kind of really developing into this full community, this whole project is being accomplished by people that didn't know each other a month ago and met through the Discord and have kind of built relationships playing and talking the game, and now we're doing something together that hopefully will be really successful. We'll move DZR forward. So excellent stuff, really exciting. So make sure you check that out. If you want to give input on the show, you'd like to kind of be a part of the show, you can always mail us at dzrmailbag@gmail.com, and you can get us on Twitter at Dark Zone Report. So yeah, keep playing the game, man. Keep looting. Keep kind of building those builds up. We don't know yet when 1.3 is going to come out. Rumor is towards the end of
I think
June.
24.
24 is your guess?
I think so. I think I saw the leak on that Eric's Twitter. I think it was something like 15 euros, something about the 24th or so, which would be, or the 26th, one of those two.
Should be soon. So towards the end of the month, and we all look forward to watching the Xboxers play it for a month while we sit and wait.
Hopefully you have some weapon rebalances for us.
Yeah, I think that stuff's coming. So in any case, hey guys, thank you for being on the show. Always a blast. Thanks everybody for listening. What's that? Bro,
I got one thing. So hey, if you got something similar to this, hey, don't be afraid to send us something or hit us up on the Discord. We noticed last night that I hadn't seen this before. Last night we were running the DZ. I got an actual decent little MP7 drop from a boss, right? We kept running through the night. Every single boss for myself after that MP7 was dropping weapon mods.
Huh.
That was what they were dropping. They weren't dropping gear. They weren't dropping guns. I was getting magazines and optics from named bosses from the main combat points in the DZ. It was crazy. I got I got an MP7, and then after that, all I got was magazines and optics
That's
at
wild,
night.
man. There
It
has
was
been
interesting.
something kind of unconfirmed speculation out there that in the coming days we may be seeing some stuff on people observing patterns in drops based on day of the week, time of day. I think it still kind of lives in the speculation realm right now, but there has definitely been some noise around that. We'll keep tabs on that going forward. If there's anything you need to know, we will definitely let you know. So once again, guys, thanks, and thanks everybody for listening. If you like the show, please share it, and share your friends. Get in on the Discord if you're looking for people to play with or a great community to be a part of. And if you get a chance and feel so inclined, a review on iTunes would be really helpful. Would help more people see the show. Thanks as always. Be safe. Enjoy the E3 coverage, and
Yeah, we love you guys.
see you in the dark zone. Sorry for rushing you guys to the end. We're like 11:40. I gotta go to bed.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's getting there. It's time for Game of Thrones here in a couple minutes.
and I could ramble about that forever.
Yeah,
Were we
that was a
boring?
good. That
Was
was
that
no,
Rambler?
dude. No, that was a good
No,
episode right there. That was
I'll
solid.
play tomorrow. I think it went really, really fast. Like it felt like it flowed good and was fast, and we got some good knowledge going out there. And obviously, it's just so different to hear. We're still live on the YouTube, but it's you can tell that we're playing the game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
The listeners really appreciate. So
Yes.
Yeah,
good stuff.
I like that there is a diversity in build.